So what should we do next?
Juju charm session at 11 o'clock.
All right.
Leadership futures.
Okay.
So this is the scaling one, right? This is.
Right.
Yeah. Let me just
put this down.
I did. Let me just read the.
Well, actually, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Maybe we want to do the community council next, because this is kind of similar to what your community team expectations are. Now, what are the expectations of the community council?
Good idea.
That's good. That makes sense.
Do we remember who put that one down? I don't know. Was it me?
Yes.
Yeah, it was you.
Okay.
And the question posed was question you posed was, where do we see the community council fitting in and leading today's Ubuntu community?
So yeah, I guess the thing I'm keen to discuss here is, like, we have this the premise of the community council, I think, means lots of different things to different people. So I think in the eyes of some, like the way I've kind of observed it, and this is not necessarily the only opinions that are out there, is that on one hand you've got the community council they're a leadership body that goes out there and motivates and inspires the community, and we look to them for guidance, right? And then I think another side is the community council are there to resolve conflict, is one other perspective. And then another perspective is the community council are basically there to keep Ubuntu honest. I think the community council in many ways supports each of these different things in different ways. But I think the formalized mandate of it is to ensure that we have an independent sense of leadership when it comes to the community process. So membership processes, the team councils and how they operate and things like that. And I guess the question I'm interested in asking everybody and discussing is, do we feel like that current expectation of the community council is fine, and we just business as usual and just help people to be successful in delivering on that mandate, or do we feel like it should be expanded or changed in any way?
Well, the community council itself, we talked about, being a bit more actively involved in this sort of stuff, rather than, just sort of.
So the question I would ask is, and this is open to the room, do people see the community council as being a government or a catalyst?
Good question, yeah.
Well, I don't like the name word government anyway.
Sorry?
I don't like the name government anyway.
Or a governing body?
Dictatorship.
Yeah, because government is like, well, that's what it comes across right over here.
Some governments are good. Some they're bad.
Some dictatorships are good. Yeah. Works for Linus. Yeah. I mean, that's a dictatorship.
Well, I think we're a bit different from them, and I don't like the word government in the Ubuntu community, because we're a bit more inclusive and kind of want more feedback. So I don't.
Perhaps it's more efficient to talk about the things we actually do as being, useful or.
So over the past 2 years, so I joined the CC 2 years ago, and then at that point we had already handed off the loco stuff to loco council, all the membership stuff. So the core of what the community council ended up doing for the past 2 years has been handling all those boards and doing dispute resolution. As individuals, we may have inspired community members because we were all still pretty heavily involved. But as a unit, I think the only communications most people saw from us were things like we updated the code of conduct at some point with tiny edit, or we talked to IS about updating the wiki, and it's really, really going to happen this time. And then the rest of it was, we're restaffing this board, we're restaffing that board, we're restaffing. And that's, I think if I look back at all the announcements we've made, I think that's it for the past 2 years.
Just as if the community council is now where, before the team councils exist, the kind of things you're referring to are really worthy outliers, the less interesting outliers of the positions.
Yeah,
and now it seems like that's become the positions, right?
Yeah, so we're doing all the administrative stuff on the project, which is a role that's needed, but it's not necessarily inspiring in itself. Like, a lot of people I talk to in the community, they're like, oh, the community council, I don't know what they do. And when people were putting their name forward for the community council, I had to write a blog post about it because a bunch of people came to me and asked me, like, so what do you do anyway? So I had to write a blog post saying we do this, and it was not...
But you're kind of like the elected, and this is going to U.S. politics, but you're kind of the elected representatives of the Ubuntu members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you go ahead and elect people to sit on those councils.
Oh yes,
that
I'm not complaining at all. I'm just.
Oh no, but I'm saying that I think some people, because I know I was confused the other day when we said that the local council is elected, Because in the US, even though obviously we don't do that with the president, it's still a electoral college, you have an election is when people vote, not when Congress votes.
Right.
Like when Congress votes to pass something, they've gone ahead and passed a bill. When they enact something, they've enacted it. We elect you guys. So you're really like that representative body that then goes ahead and governs the community and
it's really a
handles the
nomination.
appointments.
I mean, it's a nomination process, but with insight from the community.
Right.
So as representatives, it is then our duty to represent.
Right.
And to some extent, what the CC does can depend on our rough approximation of why we were sent there. Right? And so if I win election promising to do basically what we've so far done, then
it seems to me like this is just a very, very selfish opinion, but the thing I'd love to see the community council do, and I completely get it's a set of volunteers, so I can't, this is not a demand by any stretch, but just an encouragement, is I'd love to see the community council in many ways do the kind of stuff that we tend to do in our team, which is sort of identify an opportunity in the project. I feel like the CC and the TB, and to a reasonable degree the local council as well, although a little less with the local council, are more interrupt driven. It's more responsive and reactive to typically concerns or leadership changes or whatever it might be, as opposed to necessarily identify an opportunity to move the project forward. And I think that would actually be really rewarding work. Like, I'm sure that Daniel and George and David would agree that the most rewarding work in our team is when we create new things that people like and people are excited about. The dealing with all the crap is the worst bit, And I wonder if maybe that could be, like, I'm really encouraged what you just said, Scott, about the idea of kind of being kind of more proactive. And
so I actually met Mark this morning and I was chatting to him. I was like, he was asking out the first CC meeting we went yesterday. I was like, it was interesting. I wasn't expecting it for it to be streamed. It was just going to be a private kind of get together, going to shake hands, put the faces to the names. It's a brand new CC for the first time in a long time. So we're kind of hoping to maybe do another face-to-face catch in 20 minutes tomorrow, if we can possibly.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be good. I think the only reason we had to do it publicly is because it was actually a CC meeting that was scheduled.
So for me, and I said to him personally, that I would like to set down 2 goals at least for the CC. One, come up with an action item for the 6-month cycle, like we do in the local council. So I don't see why the CC shouldn't have one either. One, either create a channel for IRC, but he said himself that he travels an awful lot. I said, fine. So for the rest of us, it might work. It's worked very well for the local council. When we need issues resolved, I invite members in of different communities and different boards to come in and talk and explain stuff to us, and it's been quite good. Yeah, it is. Yeah. The second thing, we might introduce like a weekly or monthly call and a monthly call to try and like take stuff off of mailing lists and whatever, and trying to keep it personal as well, because sometimes I feel that if things go on a mailing list and you have to reply to them, you've got to keep going and posting people but reply to the freaking email. Whereas if you can do it over a phone, going, these are action items for next week, can people please do that? And you can also do via the IRC channel, but also have a goal for the cycle. So if that is writing a new governance section or doing something for the cycle, I think it would be very good for us to be proactive about something, because I don't like to be reactive about stuff. And equally for the likes of the local council, to see past the 6-month cycle, to see into the future for putting plans in place for 2 years down the line for local teams. I think the same should be done for the CEC, rather than, as they've said, we've made a change in the code of conduct, or this is an announcement for the elections, this is the results of an election. I'd like to see something that this is done for the greater Ubuntu community.
I think a lot of it's like the difference between, like how software developers fall into 2 categories. There's hackers and there's maintainers. Like, some people love hacking and creating new things, and those people traditionally hate maintenance. Some people just naturally like the kind of people who maintain SAUs and security effects and that kind of stuff, and aren't as interested in hacking. I get the impression that right now the CC is in primarily a maintenance mode position, right? And it could be fun and really rewarding to do that.
Let's do some community hacking.
Community hacking. What was I going to say? I get the impression as well, I draw parallels in some ways, the management team that I'm on, we look like there's a real sense of camaraderie and team spirit and having peers. And I think the idea of having more of an, like, you folks getting together, for example, for the 20 minutes, or even going out to dinner or whatever it might be, you know, just to kind of...
Even if it's just to grab a drink and just stand in the corner and just do, well, I guess it was great, chit chat, IRC, but...
We should have organised a dinner, actually.
Well,
I wish I'd thought of it.
Hindsight's a great thing, but it's like the local council this week, you know, we've met most days after lunch and had 2 or 3 different teams. It's been great to actually work together in a room side by side to actually resolve an issue or come up with a plan, or we've figured out the twinning of the teams. There's enough people here, each UDS, from a board or council, to sit down face to face to work on stuff. I'm not saying you have to have a blueprint or a session. You don't always need to have a session. But it'd be great just to kind of sit down going, it's been a great 6 months, we've done stuff, what do you want to do for the next 6 months? It doesn't have to be necessarily a blueprint, but to come up with some sort of action item or some sort of plan. Maybe I'm a planner, I like it that way, but at least you've got something to aim at. If you've nothing to aim at, then you can't succeed or not succeed, but at least you've something to aim and look forward to and achieve.
The other day, you said something like, I was similar. You said that the local council has done great stuff, basically because we have bonds together, because we know each other. And I think this is really the idea, that during this kind of event, we have the possibility to work closer and to reinforce and to create these links. And I think that's why I think that we've done great stuff during the last cycle. And I think that our linking connection with it just went higher and higher, and we did bigger and bigger stuff over the time.
Yeah.
So
what, I mean, is there anything that we could do on the command community team to help the CC? I mean, I sent a mail to the CC list as, you know, just saying I'd love to just hop on the phone. I know it's really difficult to get everyone together, but to kind of fulfill the same kind of call that we have, Laura, regarding the local council, just to be an in point.
Maybe it's a case of something like maybe firing off an email every set, or maybe moving on to someone from the CC and saying, you know, this was what was done in the CC meetings, this is what we're doing in the interim, heads up of any issues, heads up for plans that are coming down the line, maybe you can give us some input, or is there something we can help you as the community? Again, kind of going, you're the community manager, is there stuff that you're seeing in the community that the community council can do?
Yeah,
I think that's kind of good. I'd rather see, if you can see issues, that you can go, well look, that's not my area, talk to the CC, and say, these are issues that I think that are highlighted, but I think maybe coming from the survey, maybe there's something in the survey that you see that the CC can look after. Leadership, something, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I don't know what the nature of the calls are you have with teams, but is there any, I mean, I'm wondering why the local council...
Basically, I haven't getting them on any team issues, if we really have any.
But I'm wondering why you're not having that discussion with the CC.
Oh, we've been trying to keep them in the loop with local teams.
But we don't know what the local council's doing.
We do a team report.
Well, you do a team report, but you're saying you talk to him about a lot of private things that happen.
Well,
so I'm just trying to think, that's just an example.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if there should be more, I mean, we'll have a call.
Maybe doing that, yeah, maybe, it's a good point.
We're going to do that now for the CC, because now they're going to have the inputting of the teams going to the team meeting. So that could be kind of a way.
Yeah, I mean, that's all still public. I'm just using this as an example of,
I appreciate that.
You know, the CC's not been talking to these teams, but John was clearly catching up with them. In defining what our roles are here.
It might be more efficient than for Jono to be a conduit of sorts.
In some cases, it's because people email Jono directly with an issue. So it could have been X team, and the person was going, I have this issue, so they're letting Jono know directly, and then Jono emails me. So I'm kind of getting him back in the loop. I mean, that happens an awful lot. People go directly to you.
Yeah, the reason why I proposed the calls initially was a fairly selfish reason. It's just I just felt like I didn't know enough of what was going on, so I felt like I wasn't able to help as effectively. But I think you raise a good point. There's like helping this relationship between the team councils and the CC seems fairly
distant.
It almost seems like two divorced people living together, you know. You know, like it just exists, you know. There's not necessarily so much mentoring. I don't know whether that's something that.
I mean, I think what we do is the community council appoints these councils and then just lets them go unless there's a problem.
Yeah,
that's really how things happen.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
I mean, it seemed to work okay, but there's clearly things that are coming up that maybe we should know about.
Well,
maybe.
I mean, you've said something very valuable, which is you've made yourself available, right?
So
Definitely
maybe
call you when we need you.
Oh yeah, anytime, seriously. The phone, and I mean, I might not always be on IRC, but the phone's always on.
I need to put. Do I need your number again?
So
Yeah.
just to come up with an action item maybe there, no. Is that Donna could review something of the survey and possibly hand over an area to the CC for us to look at during this cycle. Because I kind of want an action item to come from this, that obviously that is something that's coming up. How the kind of community leadership can help. So maybe it's something we can help your team or the community itself. So maybe, can you see something from the survey that's jumping out at you
I think there was a couple of things that we've discussed already this week that I think the CC could just. I get the impression that, and rightly so, in the community, I could write a blog post about something, and it will have a certain amount of gravitas. But if it comes from the CC, it has real gravitas because the CC is a proper community body. It's not just a guy who works in the community, and I think that. So I'm thinking particularly around some of the more social and the cultural elements that we've discussed recently about building a culture of appreciation and a culture of trying to reduce some of the non-constructive bickering. I think the CC could really set out and be a very motivational force in that way. And that's one thing I'd love to.
I see the CC as a differentiating component that doesn't exist in the proprietary world.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, frankly, that's why a lot of people are having a difficulty understanding what the CC does and being motivated by the CC and looking towards, figureheads in companies for guidance, because that's what, frankly, most people do most of the time. And the people I'm talking about are the people not in this room and the people not contributing to Ubuntu.
I think part of it with Ubuntu as well is we're just such a cult of personality. I mean, and I think a lot of that is because Mark is such a charismatic person.
Yeah.
So a lot of people want to interact with him directly. So we're out of time for this one. Any other real quick things regarding that? Any other?
We're almost on break, right?
Yeah. Coming up on our next one.
Is what, sorry?
We got a little 5-minute break.
Oh, is that from 5 to 5 until 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
What?
Or from.
I mean, we're really constrained by that schedule. We can take a break now because it's convenient and come back in 5 minutes. We don't have to go on break with everyone else.
Yeah.
We'll just sit here in silence. Okay, now we can go.
All right, yeah. Right.
Yes.
With all the rights and English accents, I feel like I'm always in whatever that song was. Right.
You know what?
That's Supertramp.
I still haven't figured out where this Wham CD's come from that I got delivered to the reception last night.
You got a Wham CD?
Did I tell you about this?
No.
Last night, I went to bed at about 1 o'clock sort of time, half 12, 1 o'clock. When I got to the room, the red light was flashing on the hotel room.
Never a good sign.
And it was like voicemail. I thought it was going to be a voicemail. No voicemail. They said, "Oh, we've got something for you at reception." Half an hour previous, someone who hasn't identified themselves went to reception and left a Wham CD.
Was it
1986.
Was it a good one?
It's got the one song that I know from Wham on.
Faith?
Yeah, I think it's got the.
That's George Michael.
What's it called? The Christmas song. Let them know it's.
Let them know it's Christmas. That wasn't Wham.
Wasn't that?
That was the
It's not Wake Me Up Before You
Oh, it might
Go.
be that.
Wake Me Up Before You Go was Wham.
So, and it's it's just this CD, this dog-eared CD. It's obviously been around for a few years. It's ominous around now. And then I posted it with my name written on it.
But are you sure it was really you? I mean, maybe there's another John.
He said John O'Bacon.
Oh, okay. Well, no.
From what I can tell, I'm the only John O'Bacon on the internet. So,
Well, then the question is, why would anybody have connected you to Wham? Megadeth.
I mean, I'm assuming someone's poking fun at my musical taste, but I was expecting someone to kind of come up to me and say, like the CD.
Yeah.
The CD's already, Claire Newman's already just playing good. So
I mean, Wham's not diametrically opposed to your musical taste. It's not like they're asking you, giving you Bach or something.
Jonah, when I had my old phone, it started shutting off every minute or something like that, right? And so I got this new phone, and I started slowly getting the phone numbers and moving them down. And I would take the phone numbers, I would transcribe them to this text document, and then I put it in my phone.
Okay.
And at the bottom of my text document, it says, Jono and later, still to be added. So I got your name, and I just
You have to get access.
I'll give it to you without the. Do you want me to type it in here?
just so the internet doesn't call you.
Hey, this is the internet. If you could call it real quick, and then I'll add it to mine, because I just changed my phone. Don't worry about it.
I've also got this wonderful feature, this new phone, when I plug it into charge, it beeps continuously.
That's a great idea. You know what sucks about this is when I put the mobile hotspot thing on.
Oh yeah.
Is this tries to sell me something? It won't let me do it.
He's using it. I think it's like the same as it is before, but even before.
Thanks, Toby.
ITS too. It should be the same. I didn't check either, but we didn't change anything.
So that's a good thing to know that at least it's technical possible. So at least we can have like really bare possible.
It's just like
emerging asking for.
Should be the problem that I see is, but I don't know how images are shipped, if they are like included in the lineback, or because if we include the documentation thing, the strip out of image reflection code, I don't know how the images will be managed or based. I'm not sure. I think that Ubuntu is just reading XML documents. I can't win when we should probably ask why.
Yeah, one thing will be the translation from the
Yeah, the other thing you have to look at is we have the templates. Oh yeah, this is one because I think I remember meant to even say that we should have like work upstream. That's what I have already.
Exactly, but not like that the translations in Ubuntu wouldn't be used. That was my understanding. Especially because with message sharing, they should go into upstream. So I'll have to talk to Gabor as well, because I think we need them enabled as well with the statistics.
Oh yeah, true.
Because if they're not in Ubuntu, they're not counted as statistics. So I was looking at the statistics this morning, and last week it was still
like, oh below, yeah.
38 languages translated, this morning 43. I was wondering what's that?
Yeah, we are like 2,500 strings, so yeah, it's a big chunk of strings. Yeah, that's right.
Lots of translation sessions.
Yeah, I heard reading on this. Yeah, okay.
Friday is always the day where everyone's.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I listen to most of my localized images from this important.
Yeah, also for the yes. I didn't have time to just thoroughly this recycle also because I felt like it was like easier to use those tools inside like a CS environment. But I didn't get it working inside the CS environment.
Yeah, I think it's okay doing it in your own environment, but even they create
but even if you're, I'm not still using what's the problem? Because you have to be using units for the device. So you're looking for the CS environment, okay, then I said I'll create like a Windows environment and manage do the package part, and then I can deploy still using my because I use it for everything. Like really comfortable to have my bricks and everything.
The most important thing is to have a default package created. And I think when you've got the default package, then you can invoke default package in your native. The
problem is creating the packets, but you have to create it in the earlier environment or in the precise environment.
Yeah, tried it out. I sent an email. Actually, I sent an email.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, right. So, yeah, no, I mean, I've tried it. Tried it. I don't know, Kyle has tried it.
Maybe one of you guys would know this. Who's the definitive source of info these days on Ubuntu Software Center?
Matthew Paul Thomas?
Still MPT? Or who?
Michael Vogt.
Michael Vogt, okay.
NVO and MPT.
Okay, all right, thank you. We're trying to revise our user docs, and so we're bumping into questions. Yeah, they're kind of developer-y questions.
Nice and cool in here. Oh, Elvis is into the building. Stop, my dear. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, 20 minutes. We're going to meet the CC. We're going to get some shaking of hands and
Get Mark to take us out to dinner.
clearly not seemingly too late. They're going for diligence tonight.
I know, yeah, the canonical dinner is tonight. We'll try.
That's that annoying all-stars.
Cool.
Yeah. For all-stars like that, we go for a bite to eat.
You know, I heard from Scott Kitterman, if you just walk into the canonical dinner, act like you work there, no one will.
With the CC, they should totally be inviting us. That's not going to happen. So yeah, tomorrow we'll kind of, there's a couple of items that goes live. They're like to kind of get in place.
So wait, 2 is during final? Okay.
Yeah, no, the place tomorrow is lightning talks. So it's 20 minutes.
Have a lightning talk, so that's fine.
It was the only time that's...
We scheduled.
Yes, of course.
So...
And you are?
Where?
Nice to meet you.
Where?
We're going to meet at the reception desk outside Batteries, the desk there. We'll figure a room. I guess this is your number. Not the room.
Can you send like an email to my pieces?
Yeah, once we find a room, we'll reply, because I think Laura has a thread open, I think, so we'll just reply.
Just like a reminder.
Yeah, sure.
I suppose you've got a BGA thing for your Mac.
There's enough design to do it.
I see what you did there.
Greetings and salutations.
Pseudo make me a coffee.
I'll tell you what, you've been so nice to me for the last 2 days. Would you like a cup of coffee? Would you like sugar or milk?
Is that sarcasm? Error.
No, it's just serious. I'm serious. What are you doing? For a coffee? Would you sugar or milk?
Right? Is that what we say?
It's sugar.
You should ask him to make you a coffee.
Usually policy kills.
No, I'm
I'm going to make you write the article later on and then you've written the same.
Are you?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I alt tabbed on the process.
See you then.
I'll be back.
Oh, good.
I was going to say that, heard things last night. Apparently, no.
Nobody commented on me kind of right when John was back there.
Well, we didn't know you noticed you do it.
That's because I'm sneaky. Don't tell him. I'll see if he doesn't discover it until next UDS, but I moved the Windows 7 starter stick.
We actually had kids do that to some of our laptops. They moved, that was back when you could put a key back on, which I think doesn't happen anymore. I think the manufacturer went, no, we should make it break with it. But they moved the keys around on the keyboard. You could tell the people that weren't touch typists because all of a sudden it was like, what?
Yeah, as long as you don't mean like special character keys, yeah, I would not notice the problem.
Worked in software
What's that?
30 years. And worked in computers 30 years. Software development.
Yeah, my uncle's like that too. He's worked for IBM forever, and he's
Well,
not.
that's because they knew how to do
That's all I had
punch cards.
yesterday was new.
That's how my mother was the woman who put the punch cards in.
Yep, yep.
So we chat her up while compiling.
The first computer that I used was at Syracuse University, and it was punch cards. I was 4.
what I thought you were going to say. It's the first computer I used, and they referred to it when a computer was a person.
No, but and what was really interesting is they let me feed the cards to one program. I was okay at that, but I actually became, my dad would bring me to work a lot. He was a doctoral student there, and he wasn't in the math building, he was off in another building where they were doing computing. And apparently I, as a 4-year-old, was able to sort the cards better than some of the students.
Kids are very good at
So they would bring in this box of cards that got screwed up and ask me to sort them.
You must have thought that was like the best
I was
thing
like,
in the world.
cool. Every time I did one successfully, I got a Mallocup. It's called programming by Mallocup. It was very rewarding.
Not like the horrible Hershey stuff that they make over.
Maybe I'll mention that in the trophies session if it ever happens.
No, thank you. Thank you for offering me half of the chocolate.
Is that going to happen, John?
This is not I'm not offering my Rolo.
The trophy session, is that going to happen?
Yeah, tomorrow. No. Seriously, I'm fine. I've just eaten 4 of those churros.
You just came from a dentist, you sit.
Yeah. Other side.
Seriously?
Yeah. Well, I didn't have any lunch.
You were trying to fill in the hole.
I had 1 bite of pizza and I was like,
Does it all for the pizza?
those churros are nice though.
I know, but they're addictive.
Akka refers to them as draft excluders. Draft excluders, you know those things you put on the front, like on the crack of a door?
When I got to New York, you get the creamy stuff. It's the cream and then dump that. Cream icing.
Gotta have the healthy option. Alright.
Cream time.
Delicious.
So, what do we want to do next?
Leadership self-assessment?
So
or leadership futures.
Yeah,
So this is the scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read the preamble to that. So
you added this one, right?
Yeah. So the question posed is, has Ubuntu outgrown its current leadership structure?
Yes, we need more governance.
Yay,
More
swords.
So you've answered the second part of the question. What structure will help expand the project tenfold?
10 more councils.
I'm going to keep on my margin on the grade. It's never going to go 10.
It is.
It's never going to go 20 million.
It's never going to go what?
20 million Ubuntu users.
There's already
200.
20 million Ubuntu users.
40 million, 24
There's
million.
already at least 20 million.
I just think we need to be a bit more realistic while I'm going.
Well, it was
I think the game high.
So I
Tell you what, I
say
think
this.
if there's TVs and tablets, I think it's going to
I say
explode.
this based solely on Mark's vision, right? Mark's vision is 300 million users in 4 years. So
You learn fast.
I think so.
So Mark's vision is 200 million in 4 years, and I'm just gonna, yeah. He put a date on it in Budapest. 4 years, 200 million. So, I mean,
No pressure.
I guess the first question is, do we buy into the vision? I buy into it. I want to make it happen.
I think if you got 500 people in Vancouver, we can get 200 million people over the world, sure.
Okay.
We just got to follow you.
No.
We just need to replicate Vancouver all over the world.
Let's be fair. It's,
But I don't think 200 million is unrealistic, really.
no, I really don't think it's unrealistic either. For you know, if you think about this proposition of someone who's switching from Windows to Ubuntu or from Mac or something like that, right? You know, maybe they want to do it, but 80% haven't heard of Ubuntu, and then 80% of them don't have hardware that works, and then 80% of them have some application that we don't know the answer to, right?
Yeah.
You do the multiplication, and you get, you know, a fifth of a fifth of a fifth can use Ubuntu. That's about how many we have, right? So if we solve one of those problems, we can tell. We solve
So
another.
you're saying this is like a Fibonacci sequence?
I'm saying that we could suddenly have very, very rapid growth by doing something very small, because that domino suddenly falls.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I didn't hear the entire list, but was awareness in there somewhere?
Well, yeah, so maybe awareness is a barrier, maybe, you know, hardware support is a barrier, maybe applications are a barrier, and we're working on all of these, right?
Well,
So,
there's one more thing that I think goes with that 200 million being possible. We now, like when we all started, Linux and Ubuntu wasn't in the world when most of us in this room were born, when a lot of us went to school. And my kids now, with the exception of the oldest, the only thing they've ever known is Ubuntu. So there's also kids growing up now that may not have been stuck in that, well, I only know about Windows mode. And that could make a difference.
It could be
The
cool.
children are the future. Let them lead the way.
It's not Friday, it feels like Friday all the
I
time.
need coffee.
Let's take
So going to 200 million, if we're currently roughly 0.4% market share, roughly, given by some measurements, you're talking going to 4% market share.
or going to like 2% and doubling the market, right? Which is entirely plausible too.
Sure.
Can you bring the pad up?
That's going from current Linux market share to current Apple market share.
Right.
Or
So
And that's quite a leap.
I think on this topic, it's probably worthwhile to consider what parts of our community will need to grow, because I think we'll still, I mean, we may need a few more kernel developers, but we're still only developing one product.
Right.
And we may need more people to focus on certain experiences to make it better, but we won't need, 10 times as many people working on Ubuntu. So we'll need more governance and support in support channels, certainly.
Correct. So the question, what structure will help expand the project tenfold is, to that point.
Right,
We may not need certain things expanded.
I get the impression as well that
But we
what
may
will
need
happen
others.
is very similar to what's happened in Ubuntu so far. I mean, there's been pretty explosive, even though it's obviously not on the scale of 200 million users, there's been, within Linux, there's been pretty explosive growth in Ubuntu and our community, and diversification of our community. So the governance boards have sprung up around where other governance boards have struggled to keep up and things like that. I get the impression that one element of this, I get the impression that it's not going to be so much about preempting the growth, because I think we'll actually deal with it relatively succinctly. But I think that what will be a challenge is what we're starting to see right now, I think, which is the culture of the community changing and expanding as we get bigger. Like, we had I thought the discussion the other day was really interesting about how the expectations around canonical staff members who don't actively engage with the community and work in, for example, corporate services and sales and things like that. I think we're going to see more and more of those folks coming in. We're going to see app developers who don't care about the operating system, they just care about their app coming in. I think the real challenge is going to be how we build out, how we present an accepting culture, but also to, protect our values. I think that's going to be the real challenge, personally. I think our governance will actually just naturally, I can imagine at some point we'll have an application developer council, because there'll be so many app devs and they'll all have different ideas about what the platform should do.
So do we think that, we're scaling up by a factor of 10. Do we think in general, not picking on kernel developers or specific subsets, in general, will our contributor community grow by a factor of 10? Just contributors, by all definitions of contributors.
No. There's been an opinion voiced to me by a few people that what Ubuntu is doing by going towards things like Unity is pushing away people who are what they consider themselves power users. You see people blogging about how they're inverted commas power user, and they find that Unity gets in the way. And so that power user is the kind of person who's more likely to file a bug and probably more likely to write a patch. And so we're aiming for vast numbers of users and no contributors. That's the problem we end up with, is 200 million users, no contributors.
I don't know, I think we'll find a lot of people who, I agree with you to agree, but I think part of it is, what we will lose is we will lose people who only ever want Ubuntu to be for Linux enthusiasts. And I think that will, and we're already seeing that. And that's squeaky. So I think, there are some people, and everyone's got their own opinion on these folks. You're either a purist, or you're original gangster, or you're a realist, whatever, it doesn't really matter in my mind. But the people who just want to be able to have the same Linux experience that we've had, and design Linux for Linux enthusiasts, I think we will lose a lot of those people, because Ubuntu will just not be the cool option. It will be I think we're already seeing that. I mean, people.
But I don't. It's not really the case. I don't think. I'm not really talking about those hardcore. That's it. I'm leaving to Arch.
Right.
Or the kind who don't like to be cool with you know, whatever's popular. I'm just talking about people who are bright enough that they could contribute.
Right.
Not the people who flip from one distro to another.
Right.
People who are quite happy to sit on one distro and would have used Debian for years and years and years, but have now chosen to use Ubuntu for years.
So if
I think we're in danger of losing them.
If by some magical, mystical machine we could derive a number of contributors, and we said it's 10,000 right now, just if we had that magic. When we get to 200 million users, what do you think the number of contributors will be? Will it be 5,000? Will it be 20,000? Sorry?
Not growing.
But would it be 50,000? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at, because if it is 5 times the size, then we might have a problem.
I think we will. I agree with Pepe. I don't think it will necessarily grow in proportion, but I do think that we will attract a different kind of contributor. So I think a lot of the areas that we often struggle, I think, for example, I think documentation will get easier. I think part of the reason why documentation struggles in Ubuntu today is because we're still quite an engineering-centric community. So I think as we grow our user base, a lot of those folks will be trying to find ways to participate, and docs will be a really exciting area.
So do you think we'd move from 10,000 contributors to 10,000 contributors who do different things? Is that what you're saying?
I get the impression that I think 5 years ago, Ubuntu was pretty much all developers.
Yeah.
And people who were on the outer edges who weren't developers, such as myself, were basically Ubuntu geeks. Whereas now, I think there's a lot of people who are actively participating in things like translations, and I think really we see a lot of people support. The
reason I asked that question is if that is a possibility, and we want to prepare for that, then maybe we ought to be adding some resources in those areas now to prepare for scale, even if we are going to stay at 10,000 contributors for the foreseeable future. The mix of those contributors will change, and maybe a technical board doesn't help the documenters. Maybe something else does, or maybe, you know.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking of, the analogy is Wikipedia grew like gangbusters. It grew in usefulness, it grew in contributors, and the two attracted each other, and there was this scaling effect. And then eventually they hit a point where the amount of contributors began to flatten off, and they also became different types of contributors, from people pioneering new articles to people editing things that existed. And to some extent, as we start actually finishing software, we will
assuming it gets finished, assuming it's finishable.
Right. We will necessarily change the kind of things that become most relevant. Right. So
I think what will be more complex in many ways will be the way in which we source some of our developers. So. But maybe even not. I think our developers primarily come from a culture of scratch your own itch, right? So this bug frustrates you, so you learn how to fix it and package it and whatever else.
Or potentially sourcing designers, or I mean, there's people out there that do want to do design that maybe would like to do that as part of an open source project because they're either passionate about it, or maybe they're like one of your things in your survey, they're seeking employment. So there may be contributors that we're not even thinking about now, that as the community grows and the number of different types of people who use Ubuntu grow. In other words, the types of apps available. Like right now, GIMP is not Photoshop, and we don't have a professional movie editing software, although I know that NovaCut is working on it. As those type of apps appear, you're going to end up with different groups of people that traditionally have been left out of being able to use Ubuntu in their career or in their hobby, that all of a sudden they'll be able to, and then they'll want to potentially take that hobby and contribute that to the community, which isn't a typical contribution in, as you said, a developer-centric environment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, any other thoughts on this? Is there anything we can do today that we feel like we need to do today, or do we just kind of suck it and see?
I don't think it's going to be 20 million, 50 million, 100, 200, woo! I think it's more 20, 20.1, 20.2, slow organic growth. There will be peaks around LTSs, peaks around new form factor devices as they're released, peaks around OEM organizations who do pre-installed builds, peaks around something that other platforms don't have, killer apps. But I don't think we're going to do a bang a straight line to 20.
I think when we get our angry birds, that's when we'll start seeing.
Angry John, angry bees.
But that comes back. That comes back to the vision, though. I mean, if the vision is 4 years, what I'm hearing is it's not 4 years. Is it 4 years or not?
Well, if in 2 years we're starting to put on TVs and phones, that's a whole different kind of user.
I think what I'm also saying is we're somewhat in the driver's seat of this. This isn't external. We can drive it to 200 million. How do we get there?
I think.
Right.
I think I've used this analogy actually at wine an awful lot because there's. At one, we actually don't know how good the software is, if that makes sense, because any one problem can break an application.
Yeah.
And so if you sort of roughly model a potential user as someone who has so many applications and they have so many bugs and they're like unhappy until we fix them all, right? You whatever order you fix them in, eventually you satisfy enough, and then all of a sudden you've hit this threshold where like you're fixing one thing and it's making tens of users apply, and then you're hundreds of users apply.
So to give a good solid example, when you guys made World of Warcraft work.
And so like, and we didn't necessarily know it was about to work. We didn't know how many were on the verge of, how many bugs we uncovered by fixing it. So
that's a good point. I see that graph more than the slow crawling march up. I see a slow crawling march and then a major inflection, and then a slow crawling march and a major inflection, because one change just enabled thousands of new people.
So, but my answer to that is we don't necessarily know where those thresholds are.
We don't know where the thresholds are, but is there anything we can do in our governance structure or in the way the community is organized to help us get there faster?
We can think carefully where we think some of those like I say, LTS is a good place for us to focus our attention. In 6 months' time, less than 6 months' time, we're going to have an awesome release out of it. We'll have had 2 goes at current generation Unity. We'll have that nailed. Loads of polish, loads of bug fixes by April next year. Everyone go out and get all of themselves 365 copies of Ubuntu, and everyone give out 1 per day to some random person.
Okay, so that part, is that going to happen by itself, or is that something we need to create?
No, we need to drive that.
Okay, so how do we do that? That's what I'm getting at with this. How do we do that?
I think we're going to need. I think one thing, I think is important for us to do as well, is this whole 200 million figure. I think it's important to remember that's a symbolic figure. Like,
it's an aspiration.
Yeah, it's actually a bit low, I think.
Some people may take it a little too literally, but I think the goal is basically mass adoption, right? It's just it's consumption of Ubuntu by the general public. Because I know I've seen people say, well, how do we count this? And so I think we should just be symbolically assessing how we move forward. But I do agree that I think what we're going to need to do, this isn't going to be, in my mind, this is not going to be about governance. This is going to be about empowering our community to really fight tooth and nail to achieve that.
Right.
And whether it's with wine, or whether it's with giving CDs out, or whether it's with governance.
So do we know how many CDs we give out currently? Roughly?
Does it figure
per cycle?
No, it varies because each of the teams get a bulk, and you take into account conference packs.
Yeah. But we can find out.
If we can find out, I mean, are we hypothetically going to give out 5 times the number of CDs at some point? 10 times? There's something we might need to do in terms of scale.
The growth, what will hit that figure is when Ubuntu is pre-installed on hardware. We will never achieve that until we have the OEMs shipping it everywhere.
That's what I wanted to say. I mean, rather than say if, when we're gonna reach that level of mass adoption, because I really believe it's clearly the goal. I mean, to me, the mass adoption. The people who will be rich in that way won't be the one that we know right now who needs to go to that file, open the terminal, type that thing, and all of that. I mean, it would be just people like my mom who just went to the shop next to her to buy a computer. Well, it's not really I bought a computer, but that's it. I mean, it will be people who just take it, use it, and if it fails, we say, oh, it fails. Oh, I cannot use it.
No,
and then they will move to something else.
No. If it fails, they take it to someone and fix it.
Yeah.
That's what happens on Windows.
Yeah.
That's what happens on OS 10. That's what happens on Android, on iOS. Ubuntu shouldn't be seen any different.
I mean, okay, they will have someone to fix it, but they won't try to fix it by themselves. Because
So what's your vision?
They won't have the skills, and they won't have the idea to fix it by themselves.
So what's your vision on how that works in the Ubuntu world?
What's fixing?
They take it somewhere to get it fixed. What does that look like?
It's exactly the same model as it is now for Windows PCs.
So how do those?
The problem is, at the moment, you've got person buys computer from shop or online or wherever, or gets one given to them. However they've got the computer, put your brain in their head. This thing is broken, what do? They phone up someone, or they ask a friend, or they ask a family member who's a techie expert, or they go to a local store. Now, right now, there's no motivation for a store to help someone use Ubuntu, because they don't get kickbacks when they do the reselling of Windows. They don't get a kickback when they install antivirus software for you. They don't, they can't pull the wool over your eyes quite so much with Ubuntu. Oh, it's malware, it's viruses, that kind of stuff. So there's lack of motivation for people to support Ubuntu. Once OEMs start shipping it and it's out there in volume, they're going to have to, because they're going to be customers coming to them with broken computers, and they're going to pay that person to fix it, whatever the problem is.
Or the likes of the OEMs will provide the support. And, if an OEM is selling it in large quantities, they're going to provide the same quality of service and support as they would do Windows. So I don't think really
that's
it's back to
non-existent.
Yeah, people take Dell.
Windows, it's crap. And
so is that the model we're likely to see in the Ubuntu world as well? Or you phone up someone and it's crap?
Yep.
And is that what we want?
And that's why we should use the current model, because that works. People go to a shop, take a computer, it gets fixed.
Yeah,
should all get jobs in computer shops.
And people trust someone.
I think the thing is, I think the access to the channel is going to be the same, as Popey's saying, but the experience will end up being different, because we'll have to produce something that is better. Like in my mind, the thing that's going to make it successful is being a desirable product that has the apps that people want to use, and is something you can buy on a device. And I think we'll get there. We've only got a few minutes. Well, we're actually over, but I was just going to say, like, to me, this is really exciting. This is genuinely the first time anyone has ever tried to do this.
Right.
Like, for me personally, I've been waiting 10 years for this, because like building up to this point was cool, building a cool Linux system, but actually taking free software to everybody is really exciting.
The
I think
exciting part for me is how can we as a community define the community's place in this future? And if the answer is there is no place, it works exactly like the non-community based software hardware world, then really we have no work to do. Right?
There's nothing stopping your average person who is currently a Windows expert from being an Ubuntu expert.
Right. So, go ahead.
But I think to come back to the initial question, how can we handle that way of new people as a community, which was the question you raised initially. I think that if the community raised 10 times, our community might only raise, I said, 2 times, because the rest of the people will just be user, I would say consumer, not user, they will be consumer. Of course they will be using Ubuntu, so they will be part of the community, but the community that we are in contact with will be just maybe 2 times the one we know that right now. The rest will just be consumer. So maybe we don't have to adapt.
I think the thing is as well is I don't think we need to preempt growth, but I think what we need to do, the one thing that we can do today, which I think is more important than anything, is we need to get everybody excited about the goal. And to make it clear that this isn't something that Canonical is going to have to do with the community on the fringes.
Right.
This is something that we can all make.
I really see it as we ought to be driving this from inside this circle. We ought to be driving this goal. And if we can do that, we've accomplished something good. If the number 2, if it really is going to be 2 times the number of contributors is now, that's significant, because that changes this whole conference changes.
I think when you're talking about community, you're saying expand the community as if we pull in more people and grow and grow and grow. But I think there's still pockets of community that are almost completely separate from us,
Yeah,
who will carry on doing their support, and they'll do their looking after computers, and they will help build their little pocket. But they're not necessarily going to be in a loco team. They're going to be running a small business, helping people in the local area. That, I still think that's part of the community. They might not feel that.
I think also as well, like even in our community, the adoption of Ubuntu on a desktop expands. Our user base on using like local teams or resources may not expand, and we need to realise as well that not everybody needs to think of belonging to an online community. They just want to use their computer and their machine, and happy days are happy with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And people seem to forget about that and have to focus on they have to be online, they have to be on the mailing list, they have to be on this. They don't. They just want to use their machine like a Windows user does.
Or their television, which means they're even more removed.
Or their phone, or whatever. They don't need to feel they have to come onto this online.
Well, one of the big draws for me, and I think for a lot of people to Ubuntu, was the fact they could have an influence on the project, right? And if we're just saying that that's not going to be the case,
this is
then
what Mark says.
I think
this is what Mark says. Mark is saying, and I agree with him on this, Ubuntu is the only free software platform that is focused on end users that you can influence the platform.
Correct.
There is no other platform.
Correct. That's our crown jewel.
You cannot do this with Android.
Right.
At all.
Right. So we ought to embrace that crown jewel and amplify that. Right?
And the only way we can continue to deliver that message is by making sure that the community is a rewarding place to be, I think. I'd like to recommend we move on to the next topic, just because we were actually 10 minutes over on this one, but I think it was a really interesting discussion. So I imagine we'll probably hit this one up for 15. We can either do 2 15-minute blocks or maybe one 30-minute block. Does anyone have any preference?
Just talking
to you. Are you speaking in yours or no?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to go next, or do you want me to go next? Ours are the only two. Me? All right. So that's how do we grow leaders? And part of that, I think, goes into what Randall has been saying, is we have leaders in the community now. They've been identified, but as some of these things grow organically, how do we grow leaders? And how do we grow leaders so that if someone gets tired, I've heard people say, well, we've been with the same people for 7 years, so sometimes I want to rotate to something different. But I think some of those people feel stuck because, well, this team that I founded and started, I don't see anybody to take over for me. So I can't leave the team because it'll die. I can't go on and do something new and exciting and challenging. So my idea with that was to try to develop some strategies for people that are leaders to grow people so that people can take over for them so they can move on to something else. Or Randall can grow people and they can, in another city, so we can have another Vancouver. So how, and obviously those are two different places, but how do we go about identifying those people who are interested in leadership positions, making sure that we have an environment that helps them grow versus people potentially being, demotivated when they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel for them being able to take their own project or their own piece of something and as George says, just do it.
Because there's so many things in there, isn't there? I mean, it's like...
There is.
It seems like mentoring is one component, which I think is good, but always hard to scale up. That's right.
Yeah, and the mentoring, from my perspective too, it's not just about the downward things, but it's also... I've seen a lot of people in my retail management career that became managers and did not know how to let go of just doing it themselves. So they were elevated to a management position, and I don't like the word management, but that's what they call it in the retail world. And they didn't know how to lead their staff to produce people that would go on and get promoted out of their store. They knew how to lead a team, but not produce leaders themselves. And I think that's when you get into a leadership role, the first thing is, yep, I can lead the team. We can, Army term, we can take that hill. But now there's going to be a person that's going to be able to produce that next leader who's going to be able to go to a different hill and take that hill. And those sometimes are two different people. The people who can motivate someone to charge up a hill are not necessarily always the same people that can motivate another person to lead people up a hill.
Yeah. See, we haven't been through I don't think it's on the list. The leadership self-assessment. It seems to me that one of the things that I was talking to Amber about this. Is Amber in here?
She's here.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you.
She's going next with leadership self-assessment.
Yeah, one of the things, maybe the two are kind of really part of the same topic. But one thing that worries me a little bit, and Amber and I had a great discussion about this the other night, is like leaders. I think leaders in our community who are in positions of leadership really do need to be leaders. Like they need to actually have leadership capabilities.
Yeah.
Like Mark alluded to this the other day or yesterday, in saying that if we don't have real leaders performing leadership responsibilities, and of course those responsibilities, you know, on what, you know, can be really motivating, like helping someone to achieve their goals and be successful, and then on the other hand it can be having really tough conversations with people and sometimes removing people from the project. If we don't have people with those capabilities, then what worries me is that if people who don't have the capabilities are in leadership positions and we don't protect those positions, then the premise of leadership in the project is devalued. And I worry a little bit that we don't really actually assess people for leadership. What we do is we ask our community to vote. Mm-hmm. And that voting is often done by people. I actually don't think in many cases people actually assess the leadership qualities. They assess who they like the most.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that worries me a little bit, is that, you know, we have, that, like, I voted in the community council thing, but I voted some of my, I didn't vote for some of my favourite people on that list, because to me, some of my favourite people on that list are not quite as competent at leadership as some of the other people on that list, and I think that's the tough thing.
I think to rip a page from the corporate playbook, one thing that might be useful as a construct is the notion of a 360-degree review, where you're reviewed by your peers, your customers, your bosses, people who know you. I mean, and a self-assessment as well, and make that the basis of the assessment of our leaders.
But how do we do that? Because I like the idea of a review.
Yeah.
But and that's one of the things when I responded to Amber's original post on leadership, and when I thought about the Army, the key difference I found between what effective leadership was in the Army was the difference that someone signed on the dotted line that they were the Army's for X number of years, and no matter what assessment you got, you weren't going anywhere. If you've got a volunteer community and you do a self-assessment and you're really being honest, and sometimes that's going to involve being critical in a constructive way, people can just leave. So how do you do an assessment? And again, I just don't have any experience in an open volunteer organization, how you give an assessment.
So I think what you're saying is if the result of the assessment, regardless of mechanics, came back negative and the person left,
right,
as a result, how could we prevent that from happening?
Well, no, because as someone said, you know, in a job, you've got to get along with people. In a job, if someone gives you a negative assessment because you really can't just stop working and sell your house and live on the street in a cardboard box, you go, okay, I'm going to be committed to fixing myself because I have to. There's some motivations there that are lacking in a volunteer community. So you,
I don't know, we might like to think of our members of our community as aspiring to be useful.
Oh, I agree. There's the self-motivation of I love Ubuntu and I want to keep it going, but we want to make sure we don't crush that with assessments.
It's a bit of a framing thing, but you know.
Do you think it might scare people away? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know.
Because I see it, if the assessment's really negative from all directions, then stepping down might be a good thing, right?
Right.
Might be.
True. And I guess more what I'm saying is not that I have a problem with assessments, but my personal experience is only with assessments in environments other than this.
Well, the other thing as well is that assessments are only valuable when the people who are performing the assessment have got visibility in the work that's being performed.
Right.
So, for example, I mean, we do 360s in Canonical, and it's, you know, the people who I always ask, well, the people who typically will rate me will be my boss and the team. And they have really good visibility in what I'm doing. There's a lot of people in Canonical I'd be reluctant to ask because they just don't see what I'm doing, you know. And that, so if my boss bags me, bags on me in an assessment, then it's, you know, there's some pretty strong legitimacy to that feedback. But if some random in the company bags of me, then it may be just because of a preconceived notion.
Yeah, by peers I mean peers who would actually work with you on a regular basis, and by customers I mean people who have actually received your services, right? So it's not just the canonical employee you never interact with, or maybe you meet once a year. It's deeper than that.
So the only assessment of any type that we do in the Ubuntu community right now is when people become members. And taking directly from that example, first, people don't write negative testimonials. We've had a few where people will email the membership board and give us, you know, heads up like there's problems here, but that happens very, very rarely. And there have been times when people became members even though people had reservations. They just never communicated that, and we didn't know. So that's the one side of it. People you work with generally in public don't want to be negative. And on the other hand, even when we tell someone that they're not approved, as committed as they are, it's really, really, really demotivating. Whatever we say, like come back in 3 months, you can fix this, no matter what happens, it's going to be demotivating.
They take it really, really personal as well.
Yeah.
If you try to say that your contributions are all documented, you don't have testimonials, we can't see your interactions in the community, they don't get that at all. And they actually get their backs up about it because you're trying to get them constructive criticism. So you're not telling them you're not telling them you're not an active member, you're telling them you just can't see your evidence of being a member of the community.
Right, and I know our leaders will have been around longer, but it's still going to hurt, and it's still going to be...
In a way, I see that as that's more of the job interview. And there's never going to be anything negative on your resume in a job interview. And you could reject the applicant, and that hurts, right? But review and assessment's different. That's actually once they're in. Once
And we review local teams.
Once they're a member. Yeah, well, that's an example, right?
We review local teams, and we have, sadly, done approved a couple of teams, and actually the first one was the hardest one to do, and that was Australia. That was extremely hard to unapprove that team, because it didn't go down well with some of the members of the team, and there was a lot of backflap from it. But it turns out this year, as of, I think, last month, they went and got reapproved, because it was the kick that they needed, to be honest, and they had the new leadership, new team, new strategies, new goals, new ways of doing things. But for us to have to unapprove them that time, it was hard for us because it wasn't a nice thing to have to do. It was really, really public. We got supported then.
I think the thing is that we shouldn't be reluctant to like, if somebody reacts negatively to honest, objective, constructive criticism, if they're not doing a good job. So a good example of this is one of the loco teams. If a loco team isn't performing and they're an approved loco team, we shouldn't be afraid of saying, like, you're unapproved. Like, essentially deal with it. I mean, it is demotivating, but we shouldn't compromise that. Just to finish off, what I was going to say was, I think, but saying that, I'm not entirely sure whether the concept of an assessment, like as in a performance assessment, I think we could achieve the same kind of approach through slightly different means. I think the gist of what Randall's saying makes perfect sense. And because what we're just doing is we're just opening it up to feedback. Like, I think even just getting, for example, our leaders together at a UDS or something and just saying, let's have a conversation about what we're doing. Because I'll sit down with like a bunch of people during the week at UDS and sometimes say, as an example, you know, I think you were a little bit, I could have handled this better, or maybe this or that or the other, you know.
And I want to drive that kind of thing that you just said back down to the people we're growing as leaders. Because I wasn't talking so much about the people that are already leading. And it's a comment that Chris made the other day when he was talking about that he's gone forth for leadership. He's not gotten a position, but he has not gotten any feedback as to why. And in the situation where the community council has made that decision, I think it's good for us as we're moving forward to say that the community council really should talk to someone like Chris and say, here's some things we think you can work on that will make you more qualified in the future. You gave me a private message after the election and said you could work on bing, bing, and bang. And that helped me because that was feedback that said, okay, I can work on those things. This is a good thing. And now I had a plan, and you helped me develop that plan, as opposed to, hey, the black box said no. I don't know why.
I talked to Amber briefly about this the other night. I don't want to put Amber on the spot, but I'm going to. One thing I'd love to see, I think the new leadership team is really exciting. I think the premise of it is really exciting about building this kind of a, sense of leadership best practice. But I don't think it should be called the leadership team. I think it should be called the community council. I think the community council should be driving that. Like the work that Amber's been moving forward on and with the rest of the team, to me, is exactly like when we were talking earlier on about how we motivate and inspire leaders. I don't think it should be a separate team. I think it should be, because the community council's got the gravitas. A new team that's just called the leadership team doesn't necessarily have leadership, but the community council is anointed leadership.
But we need a lot of volunteers for this team, so it can't just be the community council.
No, but I think it could be, if you imagine it kind of like the community council are kind of the stewards of the project, and then other people can participate.
Liz and I are both on that team, and we are going to change the name of the team.
Oh yeah, it's very confusing right now.
Is it going to be?
Changing the name of the team is the issue?
No, it is going. Yeah, it's leadership teams. It feels like it's all the leaders in one team or something.
It's not there.
No, so we're thinking of like mentoring team or something team. Some leadership mentoring or leadership.
I just think it would continue to grow the reputation of the community council as well in the community. Like, wow, this leadership. Community council, I'd say, are probably the most, in the eyes of many, the most prevalent leadership board in Ubuntu, helping to lead this kind of.
I also don't want to devalue the contributions of all our people who are in it. Randall's taken a huge leadership, like a huge chunk of the document to actually go and do, and I don't want to say, oh, it's the community council doing this, when actually it's like other community members who are.
And like Cheesehead's driving the IRC sessions.
Yeah.
We're reviewing all the tasks, and we're asking other leaders to review those tasks and stuff. So I think, and that was one of the first goals in the meeting, because I mentioned our conversation too, was to change that name and get that message changed.
Yeah, I get the impression that I guess the way I'm seeing it in my head is that the community council in many ways is setting the stage of, this is valuable work, and then you get people such as Randall coming involved and participating. I agree that we wouldn't want to devalue the work of others, but I think having that strong kind of community council driving force, I just think apart from anything, it'll just catapult the objectivity, the credibility of the work. So we have just over 15 minutes left. Any other top conversational points on this? We haven't really come up with some concrete things that we can do around how we grow leaders. Do you have any thoughts on that, Charles? Do you have any thoughts on some specific things that we as a group can do?
Well, and I think you touched on it. If this does become if the leadership team becomes a community council thing, that's a place where you can have people that are aspiring to become leaders do things. When you have a loco and you've been the leader and you grow to a certain point, you need to delegate. So I think the leadership team is actually going to do that part. They're going to have specifics about going ahead and making sure you delegate and not micromanaging, and it's that kind of thing that we just have to make people who are used to doing, and particularly in the beginning, you turned left, you turned right, there was no one there, so you had to do it. Now you've got people that are left and right, and you've got to get out of that tunnel vision and say, I can delegate to this person. And I know one of the things that I as a manager had to learn is that's not the way I would have done it, but it was successful, so I've got to let it go, not go, that's not the way I would have done it.
Yeah.
and so I think it's giving the leaders in position, some of those little guidelines that we give, like we've got in the COC, just know how to delegate, and everybody that's a leader can, as you said, help other leaders know, hey, you need to delegate more, you're taking on too much, you're looking to burn out. Find someone that you trust and start giving them stuff to do, and that way we'll have a pool of people that have demonstrated that they're able to take on tasks and drive them forward, and motivate other people to help drive tasks that are more complex.
So it seems as well that we, something I've been thinking as well is that we could just, again, practical things that we can move on, is making sure that, I don't know what you folks think about this, but I'd like to make this kind of these leadership sessions a staple part of UDS. I'd like us to do this again, and I think with each UDS we'll refine the format, we'll tighten it up. This is the first one we've done, so that some of the topics have been going on a bit longer than they should have done, but I think a lot of it's just kind of I think this is one of the few times when all of us can just kind of get it off our chest and talk about it, in a setting that's high bandwidth.
I think there's value in that and just sharing our stories. I think there's also potentially for the next one we may want to consider if we have some problem statements to start with.
Yeah.
Maybe there are a few specific problem areas that we want to really drill into, stuff that's popped up since the last cycle.
So that seems
that we need to kind of keep is, we already have a jam-packed schedule, and you know, as we continue to grow, we're going to have more and more community-related things. It's going to become hard to do a leadership summit during UDS. And
well, one other option could be as well.
It's going to be even harder to do it any other time of year.
Why not do it on the Sunday or the Saturday after UDS?
I think that's
Sunday
quite
before
hard.
UDS or the
I think
Saturday?
that's quite hard for people who are canonical people. It's like how much I say canonical people should contribute. They're out here for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes,
and
it'll be 2 weeks.
They need some time.
It'll be 2 weeks for that.
But how many canonical staff are at this leadership summit this weekend, bar the community team?
Last week?
No, here.
She's saying how many canonical staff would attend the leadership summit?
As you can see, like,
there's at least 2 in this room.
I know, but that's the
3
community team.
5 or 6 total over the course of both days.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I mean,
I
think it's an option. I mean, put it this way, if I'd be, just thinking personally, I'd be happy to just suck it up and do it. But I think it would, one other option is that we actually, pick, for example, 2 days of UDS and do it solid.
I would prefer if we do it that way, either before or after. I prefer before or early in UDS, just because, you know, if this is the leadership summit and we are kind of talking about leadership and we intend to lead, then we still have the rest of the summit to start socializing and culturalizing that lead.
Someone who does a lot of stuff that isn't just community. I like the idea of like the Sunday before, because often my stuff is hit the ground, my non-community stuff is hit the ground running.
Like I missed all the QA sessions for things that were in the community this time. So having those 2-3 hour blocks, I think will draw some people away from some of the things that they're actively contributing in.
I think it would be cool to, I mean, one thing that could be another option is that, I mean, this week before UDS is just there, because there's so many canonical people coming out here, it's just a good opportunity to send people out, saving the travel. They're having one like next week as well. It's like the commercial sprint, which to me is just a ridiculous idea. Having a sprint after UDS, there's going to be some high value there.
More like a crawl.
But, you know, I think that it's, so last week there was, you know, the design team were together, the app developer thing was together, the Juju sprint was together. You know, people were talking about all these different things. And it's mainly to get teams together that's useful, but I'm actually thinking it could be useful to say on the Thursday and the Friday, when some of these other teams have got their things going on, that we invite a set of leaders out early to UDS for the Thursday and the Friday, and then I think what this week has taught me is that these sessions are valuable, or we can iterate them, but I'd love to be able to explore ways in which we can make it even more concrete, like where we could potentially even have breakout groups working on things. And I personally would love to have a set of presentations as well where people can share their experience. Like, this has all been very discussion oriented, but I'd love to sit down and hear 10 minutes of like someone in this room talk about what they've learned, you know, that kind of thing. And that might be useful for us to explore as well. Christoph?
I think the one issue that can raise when you think about inviting some people is that what makes the value of this discussion here is the openness of it. And that anybody who feels being in the case of leadership can attend it. If we go and say, okay, for instance, 2 days before the UDS, we will invite some people. What about the other? Will they feel okay to join it if they haven't been invited to? Will they say, oh, if I'm not invited to, and it's not yet, it is not yet UDS, maybe they will feel, oh, it's not for me. I shouldn't have to participate in that. It's something private. Or maybe this can be explained to say, okay, we have chosen a few people here, but if you think that you should attend it, do not hesitate and come.
Google Hangout?
Could do.
It's cheaper.
The only downside from just a technical perspective is... I
know, they use a bit of tech.
Yeah. So it worries me.
And
From a team building standpoint, I think it's very valuable.
It's transformed our thing.
Face to
We
face.
haven't.
Yeah.
It's just really.
And honestly, a solution based on Golang Atom or whatever we want to use on the remote stuff is quite complicated to follow for anyone's use.
I think my thinking as well is there will be some people who would feel a bit put out that they can come in the same way that we always have the same people who feel like they should be getting UDS sponsorship and they don't, and they get all wound up about it. My hunch is that what we do is for those 2 days is that we have the full CC, the full TV, the full local council. We basically have the governors who are on one hand, yes, I mean there's people in this room who are not governors, myself included, who wouldn't be invited out. But on the other hand, the good justification, I think, for saying that we send the governors is that they are our elected officials. They are our Congress, you know. So I think, I'm not sure that the fact that it will be a little bit more closed is necessary reason not to do it. But I think it gives us then a chance. Like, I would love to organise a big team dinner, for example, for all of our governors, just to help people socialise and have a few drinks
Putting
together.
faces to the names rather than just like, it was just great this week to be able to sit down, even for the local council, just to meet and resolve some issues.
Yeah.
How about if the expense is a problem of shipping everyone around the world to one location, have 10 locations, 10 Google locations, and get as many people, like you can have one in London office, one over here, one over in California, one in the Far East, one in mainland Europe, and that's 10 locations. Get a projector in a hotel room like this. You could get an awful lot of people in effectively one room.
You can. In reality, we actually looked at that once before. The expense difference is, it is, to any one of us sat here, it will be a lot of money, but for a company, it's actually not that big of a deal. But yeah, it's a good point. I actually don't think that, just to finish up, I haven't asked anyone about spending this, but Mark and I have already talked about doing something like this in the past. In fact, we were going to do it for this one, but we got busy. So I actually think, Mark's not the boss, Jane's the boss, so I need to check with her.
I have a question. If you do it and you invite the governance boards only, would you then be willing to say to people, if you want to pay your own way to be there?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So that opens it back up more, because it means that you might have other people who are sponsored but aren't sponsored for that.
Right, because
They
they're
come early.
2 nights in a hotel.
Right, which is a lot less.
Not a horrible.
We could do it where people fly out early, they pay for the 4 nights of hotel.
Or
Good to go,
people who are in the area and show up or whatever,
I'd say the only reservation, I'd say so long as those folks are there and they're actually actively contributing,
right.
Which I think would be,
I think if you're going to
fairly
pay money or
self-selected.
something like
You're going to spend
that,
money, you're going to want to be in it,
yeah.
But yeah.
But at the same time, though, Canonical's not technically out any money, so, if I'm paying for my hotel room and I have to not show up one day.
No, that's not really my concern. My concern would be that one of the great things about having all the governing leaders together is I think that the quality of discourse will be stunning.
Right.
Because they're elected.
I'm
just saying, if somebody, there's always one person in a room who just keeps rambling off topic and, and that kind of stuff. I'm not going to answer that. No, but like this is a good example. Like, everyone who's contributed to this, has brought a lot of value, I think. So, but anyway, I can't make any promises. But I actually think, would you folks who would have to come out to UDS for an extra 2 days? Would that be would that?
As long as we don't do it in Orlando, I'm good with it.
No, I'm cool with it. Actually, this does remind me, because last year, through whatever reason, I wasn't sponsored for UDS, and so I actually came and stayed at a cheap hotel nearby. And I think we need to reevaluate that experience, and because I remember I couldn't get the group rate that you guys got, for instance, which is just absurd. Of course, that discount can be passed, right? And things like we have to actually consider this situation a bit more.
Maybe you can have the room block stay open longer, negotiate that as part of the.
That's a Mariana problem. Yeah.
But this is
I
all
agree.
technical, easy to do.
Yeah,
shit.
no, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Because it's an open event, right?
Yeah.
So we've got 30 seconds left.
And I pasted the self-assessment questions that I asked myself, and I asked others to evaluate me on in the Etherpad.
Wow, you can bold text and then Etherpad.
And so we don't have really time to discuss all that, but those are qualities that leaders need to have that would deal with team leadership on a volunteer organization. And so I always ask for feedback. And John is more than happy to give it to me.
The difference is that I give it privately.
Zing!
We discussed this earlier, that wasn't very
Amber,
instructive.
you want me to take that arrow out?
Can't reach it.
That wasn't a knife in the back, that was an arrow.
Let me just shove it through.
All right.
But so there it is. So
I think we're done then.
yeah, we're done.
So thanks everyone. Thanks for everyone's participation. That was good.
That's on the back all around.